Hello, everybody. We're here on the Common Book Show. Um, and I am Paula. We're here with Richard, and we're here with Brian, and my son Tom on drums. And we have a small group today, but I am, this book is falling apart. That's why it looks so skinny. Robinson Crusoe is not this skinny, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it because I don't know why I picked up this book. It was written in 1719, and I was looking to read something that was easier to read. And when I saw Robinson Crusoe, I thought it was a little adventure book like The Three Musketeers, which I really liked. And I thought, oh, this will be fun, but it's not really fun. But I'm interested because it was written so long ago, but it's not really fun. But I'm beating back some, yeah. So one of the things I've noticed in this book, when he is shipwrecked, and he does have all this crap that he saves off the boat before the boat finally is completely destroyed. One of the things he saves is a Bible. It's the only book he has. He's on this island for 23 years by himself. All he has is a Bible, and he has a parrot who can say a few words. And so that's the only voice he hears until he finally saves his man Friday from being eaten. All right, so he's got Friday now in the book where I am. And he's teaching Friday how to speak English. And he's also teaching him about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and about the Bible. Of course, Friday can't read, but he is learning English. And so he's telling him all this stuff. And this, I found this particular paragraph very, very interesting because for 1719, it really made an impact on me. It says, okay, after this, I had been telling him how the devil was God's enemy in the hearts of men and used all his malice and skill to defeat the good designs of providence and to ruin the kingdom of Christ in the world and the like. Well, says Friday, but you say God is so strong, so great. Is he not much strong, much might as the devil? Yes, yes, says I. Friday, God is stronger than the devil. God is above the devil, and therefore we pray to God to tread him down under our feet and enable us to resist his temptations and quench his fiery darts. But, says he again, if God much strong, much might as the devil, why God no kill the devil, so make him no more wicked? You know? So, as he says, I was strangely surprised at his question, and after all, though I was now an old man, yet I was but a young doctor. What he means by that is a young scholar, and ill enough qualified for a causist or a solver of difficulties. And at first I could not tell what to say, so I pretended not to hear him and asked him what he said. But he was too earnest for an answer to forget his question, so that he repeated it in the very same broken words as above. But this time I recovered myself a little, and I said, God will at last punish him severely. He is reserved for the judgment, and is to be cast into the bottomless pit, to dwell with everlasting fire. And then, in another, maybe 2 pages later, he contradicts himself again. And Robinson Crusoe contradicts himself and says that the judgment is reserved for humans and that the angels don't have to answer in the judgment. So, you know, he doesn't really have a good answer for him.
Yeah, that's odd.
And I thought, you know, this is really interesting. And I looked up, I tried to find some criticism that talked about the religious aspect, and the only one I could find was actual religious criticism where they say, oh, he found the Lord when he was, you know, in need, and he was on this island, and he was in desperate need of something to make him feel hopeful. And I think that that's what he used religion for. But then when I was doing my research, I found this little tidbit, which I found fascinating. Okay, so this was written about, well, I'll read it. It says, but Robinson Crusoe wasn't the first. Not really. This is from Martin Wainwright. There is a tale of our troubled times about a man on a desert island who keeps goats, builds a shelter, and finally discovers footprints in the sand, but it is not called Robinson Crusoe. It was written by a wise old Muslim from Andalusia and is the third most translated text from Arabic after the Quran and the Arabian Nights. That book is the improvement of human reason exhibited in the life of Hai Ibn Yodhan, known as the first Arabic novel, just as Robinson Crusoe is often cited as the first English novel, written in the 12th century by a Moorish philosopher living in Spain. So there's a chance that Defoe could have come across this, since it is the most
Possibly.
a translated book besides the Quran and the Arabian Nights. So he could have come across it and used it as his source material.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, and this was how many centuries later when it was first written by, and
Wait, when was the Arab version
in
written?
the 12th century.
12th century.
Is,
Wow.
that what he said? The 1200s.
Yeah, I missed what
The books
when
are-
you said it was. Yeah.
I think it said the 12th century.
Wow, that's
I
pretty
looked at it
wild.
just as I written, but yeah, written in the 12th century by a Moorish philosopher living in Spain.
Hmm.
I just thought that was interesting, since I've never heard that before. You know, Robinson Crusoe's been around for a while. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm still reading it. I'm almost done. I got a lot of reading time in today because I had to babysit my daughter's dog.
Were they well behaved?
The dog is, it's a kangaroo. It hops.
What?
It's a boxer, and she is, you let her out of the crate and she jumps straight up in the air. And of course, Greg's not really that fond of Kiki because she's too rambunctious, and, you know, he moves slowly, and it's a lot for him. So, but, you know, she's on vacation with her family. That's punishment enough.
That's your daughter?
Yeah. Yeah, she told me a story about, well, she didn't tell me a story. As I'm on the phone with her this morning, her youngest daughter comes up to her and says, "Mommy, smell this." So Renee grabs whatever it is, and I don't know it at this point, and so she smells it, and she says, "Yeah, what about it? It smells like a bagel." And she says, "Well, taste it." And she says, "Yes, it tastes like a bagel with cheese. That's what you wanted, a bagel with cheese." She says, "Well, I don't care for it." And she walked away. She wanted to say it was spoiled because she didn't like the way it tasted, so she wouldn't have to eat it. But, you know, this is vacation with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we haven't been together for a couple weeks. I'm sure you have a long list.
I do. Some of the things I've been discussing with Brian.
Oh, okay.
I knew it.
So here's one thing. I think we discussed this, Brian. All right. This came out in the news this week.
Okay.
Nearly 50,000 Americans died by suicide in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Adults 65 and older had the largest increase in deaths by any age group, with an 8.1 rise to 10,433 of those 50,000.
Wow.
Why? How do you interpret that?
Well, you're asking me this question at a good time, because I have been neck deep in reading about how childhood trauma affects, and trauma, we're not just talking about things like seeing someone killed or being beaten or sexual abuse. We're talking about parents who are not one day something isn't wrong, and the next day they're inconsistent parents who parent inconsistently, so that the kid's always off balance, doesn't know what's right and wrong. Things like being not being touched enough as a child. Human touch is very important, especially in and the thing that really freaks me out about this is the stuff that happens in the first 2 months of life is the stuff that affects you the most deeply and is the hardest to get rid of through therapy. Okay? So it is my belief that there are a lot of people walking around out there who have never dealt with their childhood trauma. It's estimated that 60% of people in America have experienced, violence or some kind of childhood trauma. I mean, even with me, and I think back to my own parenting, and I talk to my daughter and I say, "Do you feel like you've had trauma in your childhood?" And she says, "No, but I think she did because I was responsible for that trauma." So I think that these people have, and the older you get, the harder it is to confront these things. So I think that people are just are filled with despair. They don't know what to do, especially in that age group. There's still a stigma against getting help through counseling or
So you're saying these
therapy.
people carried it all the way into past age 65 and then killed themselves?
Well, no.
Why wouldn't they do it younger?
No, I'm saying that because as you get older, it starts to surface, and this is one of the things they talk about.
I can see what
They
you mean by
say
that,
they
but-
say that you have a busy life. You have a busy life from the ages of 25 until 65. You're working a job. You're taking care of a family if you have one. You're engaged in this
You're distracted by
you're
life.
distracted. And then when you don't have that distraction in your life anymore, and these thoughts start surfacing, I mean, of course, we're a youth culture where
Right.
we worship the youth. But I think it's stronger than that. I think that the people who are not they haven't worked through their trauma are becoming despondent. They don't know why they feel stuck. They don't know that it's even an issue. They think, "Oh, that happened a long time ago. It's not affecting me anymore." But it has a physiological effect on your body.
See, I totally agree with all that, but from what I've been reading lately, and they've actually labeled it a loneliness epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
The number one group of people, like it said on that the over 65, the percentage went up on those that were committing suicide. But the main group of suicides in the U.S. are middle-aged men that are mostly divorced.
Mm-hmm.
They're living alone. And I think the loneliness factor is a more immediate, huge thing. Like just living in the senior building that I live in now, we all joke about it. We joke about loneliness. Like
Right.
people will say, "Okay, we'll sit outside on the benches and talk to each other," and someone will go, "I'm going back to my cell now." Like, yes, that's
Right.
that's the verbiage
So,
people use. Like they'll laugh and like, "I'm going to go sit alone in my cell by myself."
So what these psychologists that
And-
I'm reading, what these psychologists are talking about in these books.
But I totally agree with
Yeah,
you that
right.
people carry these traumas their whole
What
life
they're
because
saying
it
is
happened to me.
the loneliness is because these people
So-
they haven't learned the right
Okay,
skills
okay.
in order to connect with people. She was the
That makes sense.
the one therapist that wrote this one book that I just finished. She had a client who was going to turn 70, and she had lived through a massive amount of trauma, and some of it had to do with the fact her children wouldn't talk to her anymore because she was in an abusive relationship. Her husband was abusive, but she couldn't see past her situation to get out of that abusive relationship. So the husband was beating the children, and those children couldn't forgive her. So with the work that she was doing with this woman said, "If I can't figure out what's wrong with the way I am and what's happening in my life, on my 70th birthday, I'm going to kill myself."
Right.
And she said that put a lot of pressure on her as a therapist, but they worked on talking about what happened, and and also there were things she was hiding from the therapist because she was embarrassed that she hadn't been strong enough to leave that relationship. So, she managed to get this woman who was young, youthful for 70, but 70, to face the things that happened to her and move past them. And so it didn't change everything. Her children still weren't talking to her. She wrote a letter to her children and she explained what happened. And the daughter did contact her and say, I'm still not ready to talk to you, but thank you for this letter. It explains a lot. And she managed to make some friends along
So
through
wait,
the
the
path.
70-year-old woman had been in horrible marriage relationships, and the daughter got really traumatized?
No, but the
And didn't wanna
woman,
talk
the
to the
reason
mother?
the reason the mother stayed in that traumatic relationship is because of the traumatic stuff that happened to her in childhood.
Oh, right.
So
okay,
it
yeah.
seemed normal to her to
Yeah.
be in a relationship like that because her own
Yeah.
family was like that.
Yeah, that
So
happens a lot.
when you think about love, when the only love you've
Yeah.
ever known is violence,
Sure.
that's what you gravitate toward.
No, now that you were describing the thing with the therapist, the relationship between her, I could see how the connection, like, I understand how people carry these things through their life. It becomes part of them. It becomes part of their personality. Like, I was abused by my stepfather and beaten almost every day for 4 years, like, by a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me till well into my 40s to even really face the anger that I had inside me. It was so deep inside me.
But and that creates
I'm still dealing with it,
right.
too.
It creates feelings whether I mean I don't know how far you've gotten into fixing it, but
Yeah.
it creates feelings of I must have deserved that. I don't deserve anything better than that. And then finding yourself in relationship situations
For a
where
lot
you're-
of people, yeah. I
where
never
you're
felt
being-
that way,
You're
though.
being treated
But-
badly, and if you're being treated well, you sabotage the relationship because you feel like
Mhm.
this can't be true. There's something wrong with this. This person must be lying to me. So there's a lot of it's kind of blowing my mind because I thought I fixed everything, and
Sure.
I said to Greg the other day, which was kind of hilarious. I said, you know what? I think I have to say thank you to Harvey Weinstein because that was what started the whole process for me to go back and re-examine, and that's when I had that PTSD thing with that guy in the during the book sale in the history museum. I blew up at him. I realized my daughter told me you have PTSD. I started thinking back, and I started.
How long ago was that?
That was had the Harvey Weinstein thing happened when? Like 5 years ago?
No, he means when did you experience Harvey
yeah.
Weinstein?
No, I mean, when did you go to the book thing?
The book thing was the same year.
Oh, it was the same time all that came out?
Well, it might have been the next fall. It was the next fall. It happened in fall, and then the next fall when I went to the book thing with Greg, I had a PTSD episode, and that's when I realized that I was using food to
Oh, okay.
push down emotions. So there's so much happened because of that because of revealing that one, and I didn't even think of it as a secret, and it certainly wasn't bothering me because you know why? Because I had dissociated before that happened. I had become so dissociated by what happened in my teen years that when that happened, although it did make me cry after the fact, I was able to keep myself together because I dissociated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I couldn't write out the paragraphs, the chapters of my book that were too painful because I couldn't get the emotion in there because I had dissociated. So I'm learning all these new things. Anyway, so yes, I think that older people who have not worked on their issues, all of a sudden they find themselves with too much time on their hands, and they can't get past it.
And all that old
But-
stuff comes back to them?
But the loneliness part, but it's all connected. They're lonely because they can't relate to people because they are still haven't dealt with their trauma. Not every old person's lonely, as you know. We're old. We're not lonely. You know, we have skills in order to have people in our lives. So the people that don't have those skills because they don't trust anybody, they're leery of meeting new people, of making eye contact with people, of having anybody in their life. Those are the people.
Okay, that's all psychological issues, but what about people that get to 70 and the woman or man they've been married to for 40 or 50 years dies and they're all by themselves? Like, I'm talking about physical, environmental issues.
Well, right.
And they're suddenly alone and they've never been alone their whole life. And yeah, there could be, obviously, there's going to be emotional stuff in there. Like maybe they got a little dependent on their spouse. But what about people that...
My sister her husband died a year and a half ago. Since he's died, now I'm not talking about men, she's made women friends. She has pulled in at least 15 new women friends into her life.
Yeah, but not everybody's like that, Paul,
right,
and it's not just because they're damaged. They just might not have the skills
I don't agree with that. I think it's because they don't trust people and they're afraid to talk to people. They're afraid to talk to them because they don't trust anyone and they think everybody's out to get them and they're going to get hurt.
Someone that their spouse died in a tragic accident is going to just automatically think everyone's out to get them, and so they can't talk to people.
I'm saying that he did. Maybe that person trusted that one person in his life, that one individual. But I mean, I don't think it's healthy in a marriage not to have friends. I don't think it's healthy for people to depend on that one person as their sole contact with the outside world.
Sure, but what about people that actually do kill themselves because they were so in love with somebody that they're gone? And I mean, that's a real phenomenon. It's not.
It is, but
they get so depressed. People get depressed not just because of stuff that happened in their childhood.
No, they get depressed,
but stuff that happens now.
But their skill set is such, you know, if anything happened to Greg, and God forbid, I mean, he's younger than me. If anything happened to Greg, I care about him. I mean, it's the best relationship I've ever had. But I have a skill set that will allow me to reach out to other people and to have other people in my life. And I think that any healthy... My sister was very in love with her husband, even though, I mean, he wasn't my cup of tea. But she had friends already in her life that she could turn to because she's able to do that. And the thing is, anybody who just has one other person in their life is looking for trouble. You know, you got to have...
for sure.
And there is a situation where people sometimes only have couple friends. You know, they're all couples. And then it becomes painful because everybody else is with somebody and they're not. But even then, those couples will be on the lookout for, not that they're going to have another relationship right away, but they're going to look out for them. They're not going to let them just wallow. So I think there's a connection between, you know, that ability to deal in the world and especially trust. Trust is so important, and I know you can't trust everyone, but you have to be willing to trust some people, because if you're not, you're alone.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that totally. I'm just saying I think there's more exigent circumstances in some people's lives that drive them to want to kill themselves. It's not always because they're broken and
no, but it's not.
They don't have good skills at relating with other people. There's all kinds of complicated reasons.
Right, you're married to somebody for 50 years. A big part of you dies when that person dies.
Well, that was just one example. I'm talking about other things. You know, people get depressed for a lot of different reasons, and a lot of it sometimes is trauma from their past.
Yeah, but I think, there's still a stigma against people going for therapy and going to counseling.
Sure, definitely.
And even now that we're in this new age everyone's medicated. You don't really need to be medicated unless you have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder.
Right.
You know, and first of all, therapy is not covered by insurance. Counseling is. Counseling is in the moment, what's wrong with you now, let's fix it. Whereas therapy is finding out how you got to this place. It's
Right.
like there's this one book I'm listening to, it's called What Happened to You? And they're trying to make a statement that when kids are in school and they're misbehaving, they're acting like little assholes, instead of saying, what's wrong with you, the phrasing should be, what happened to you? Why are you acting like this? This is the direct result of some kind of bad treatment or trauma in your life. You know, this is not, you know, children are not born like that. There's something going on. And so this is what the new paradigm is. It's not what's wrong with you, so let's fix it. Let's give you a pill. It's what happened to you, and let's go back and help you deal with what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm done with my soapbox now.
This is a point that was raised. You know about this book?
Yeah.
I've never read that book, but I know about it.
He draws a distinction between real love and false love in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, false love would be, I love you and only you.
Right.
And he would say true love is, I love you because you inspire me to go out and indulge with all these other people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's
Right.
that's a good.
Not love in isolation.
It's like you're the soil that makes me grow.
Yeah.
That's why I love you.
That is so much about what I've been reading about trauma, and it's that those good, healthy relationships that encourage you to go beyond your what you perceive as your limitations. You know, and have you read that book? It's a book you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't know it personally, but that's a great.
I think I read a
It's a
different
great
book by him.
idea.
Can't remember the title.
He's written several.
About 25 books
Yeah,
he wrote.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's a psychologist, right? Or
He was from a school of
Pretty much.
thinking in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
mm-hmm.
And I think it was called the Hamburg School.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You ever hear about that?
I haven't. No.
So what it was is the spirit of the 1960s was, let's look at everything from a new point of view.
Right.
Okay? And these writers noticed that they were all doing this, but they were, how would you put it, in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So Erich Fromm was a psychologist, so he looked at psychology from a new point of view.
Right.
And Herbert Marcuse was an economist, but he looked at economic reality from a different point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So there was about 8 of them, and I don't know if they thought up the term, we'll call ourselves that, or other people said, oh, they're from that school.
Right.
But there really wasn't a school.
Yeah. Just the same as
Yeah.
there's a lot of art movements like that. They really don't exist, but they're after the fact named that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was no coincidence that, for example, when I started reading Erich Fromm and I wanted to read more and more of his books, which I did wind up doing, he kept referencing these other writers like Herbert Marcuse.
Oh, okay.
So I said, I got to check this guy out. Then I liked him,
Yeah.
And then I found out about all these other people who all happened to be in the same Hamburg school.
Yeah. They all agreed. They had that same way of looking at the world.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. I like when I get ideas like that from books that I read, and I read a quote from another book, and then I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like to read that. But like I said, I've been I don't know. I just gravitated toward these trauma books recently, and I've gotten a lot of insight. As a matter of fact, I want to find out. I don't know if there's a UB clinical psychology department.
Pretty sure, yeah.
If there is, I want to volunteer. If you hear me, if you're out there, I'm ready. I can't afford therapy, but I would love to find out, go and I think I've made a lot of progress on my own, but I think that there's always work to be done.
Uh-huh.
So I think it would be interesting.
I would think UB does. I mean, I took some psychology courses at UB.
I did
so-
too, but I don't know. They must. I don't know if they take volunteers for. I tried,
volunteers, I don't know.
I tried
but-
looking it up, and I know that they use like the Erie County Counseling Service as one of their places where they reach out and they do their field work. But
Okay, I looked it up. It's the Frankfurt School.
oh,
Now, you want to hear something interesting?
well, why was it that? Why was it called Frankfurt School?
Maybe they all ran into one another in Frankfurt. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe, yeah.
Good restaurants there.
But, people want to ban books.
Yeah.
They want to ban the books of all the writers from the Frankfurt School
Are you serious? Why?
because they think
Is
it's
there-
Marxist.
Liberal. They're
Marxist?
too
Because
liberal.
why do they think it's Marxist, though?
Well, because a lot of the writers thought that Marxism was a good thing.
Oh, by association, they think it should
Ye-
be banned. Yeah.
Well, and their ideas are probably too liberal. For
Well, yeah, I figured that automatically.
I don't know if this
but-
is true or not, but I saw that
know.
Richard Lambert posted something on Facebook that said that some, I don't know, all of Shakespeare or some of Shakespeare has been banned in Florida.
Oh, I saw a reference to that somewhere on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it was just one of his plays, like that had something in it that they freaked out about. I have no idea what it was now, but
Yeah, I didn't.
because I don't really pay 100% attention to stuff like that because I'm like, oh, this is so stupid. It's
Yeah,
like,
I know that. I think Richard Lambert shared it, so that's why I saw it.
right. No, I'm just saying I knew it was like I think it's just a play, but and some character in the
didn't-
play maybe, or just like when they get freaked out by Disney movies and they
Oh.
react to like one of the characters in a cartoon is maybe not straight or whatever,
Yeah.
and they go insane and
We're going through, like, is this a new Dark Ages? Shakespeare gets caught in Florida. Don't say gay laws. One school, the students read only excerpts from the Bard of Avon's plays, owing in part to state laws restricting content that can be deemed sexual. Oh. I bet my bodkin they found some sexual
yeah, well, yeah,
material in
Shakespeare,
Shakespeare.
sure.
Yeah. Did you ever look up that show, the Upstart Crow?
No, doesn't that have the canned laughter in it?
It might. It's a
Yeah.
British show, but I don't know if it has canned laughter.
Yeah, I
It-
hate canned laughter.
yeah, it's
I feel manipulated.
it's really a good show though. It's really it's very smart and very funny, and very I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. But yeah. So what are you reading now, Brian?
Oh God, I picked up a couple more books yesterday, and so I'm reading, like, switching from one book to another book to another book. I picked up a book that's about this guy. What's his name? His last name is P-A-S with 2 dots over the A. So my computer, when I posted about it on Facebook, I didn't know how to put the 2 dots over the A. But he's a physicist, and the book's called The One. And basically, he starts out talking about Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher who said, out of all comes one, and out of one comes all, is what Heraclitus said. And he says that back in the time of the Greeks and the Romans, monism was actually a thing. It's called monism, where they look at the entire universe as being God, which is kind of how I look at it. Like, most people in Christianity, organized religions, they make God seem to be a person. Like God is a man sitting on a throne with the beard and all that shit. But if you go back to Heraclitus and the ancient Greek philosophers, they actually believed that the entire universe was a unity. Everything was a unity. Like all the planets, all the stars, everything was a unity, and that everything comes out of that. And this physicist, in the book that came out in 2022, he's saying that, and I've always felt that this was absurd. Like, in high school they taught us about atoms. Atoms are the building blocks of everything.
Yeah.
Of matter. And then now with quantum mechanics, they found quarks and leptons and gluons, and as our instruments get sharper and sharper, and we can see more and more, we're just chopping stuff up with scalpels into little
Getting
more bits
smaller
and bits
smaller.
and bits.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was absurd because my feeling was, or thinking was that, sure, if you keep just chopping it, you're going to find smaller and smaller bits that
But-
make up everything. And this,
But
this
as
physicist,
we were taught though that the atom was the smallest thing.
right?
Yeah.
And now, like, they found the Higgs boson, the God particle. They actually had the nerve to call it the God particle because the Higgs boson, which they found in that giant super collider in France under the ground, where they smash all the particles, electrons together to get smaller and smaller particles. They're like, okay, the Higgs boson is it. We found it. It's the quantum underlying of all matter and stuff. And this guy's saying, no, we're going the wrong way. It's like we need to go back to what Heraclitus and the ancient Greeks philosophers knew 5,000 years ago, that everything is a unity. He's like, if we change our view and look in the other direction instead of just keeping, like, trying to figure out what all the little bits are that make up the universe. And I've only gotten into the first chapter, so of course I don't know where this is all going in this book.
That's how how I was thinking about, everything. If that you got smaller, and then when I started extrapolating,
Then you go bigger,
upward,
bigger.
bigger, and we might be part of something we don't even know about.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so to me, I like this. I like that. I think that's a book I might want to. It's called The One.
The One, yeah.
I'm
It just came
gonna-
out last year.
I'm gonna put it in my phone.
So I like where he's going with it because, he says if we just change our perspective, we might discover things that will blow our minds that we've never even thought about.
Right. I like this. I'm gonna.
And that we're kind of like, because I feel like that's a natural human tendency is to categorize everything. We have to name everything. We have to chop everything up
Well,
and put it
that's-
in boxes.
That's how humans
you know,
categorize everything.
we do, everything.
and that causes
Everything.
it's great because we have categories, but then we end up
Right.
having us against them.
Exactly.
We have problems with we are this and you are that, which isn't true. So I don't know.
Like I read, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 books by the Indian doctor. He's an MD, but he's also a philosopher, and I'm sure you know he is, Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
I read a bunch of his books, and then some of his more recent books in the last 5 or 10 years I wasn't so fond of. I thought he's getting a little goofy.
Yeah. I don't.
And he's doing it for the money now, it seems like to me.
Yeah. I agree with that.
In one of his more recent books, though, I really latched onto one thing in his book, like from 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, is that Deepak Chopra believes that the entire universe is a unity, is one, is God, basically, to use a word, because they're, you got to name something. Of course, we're humans, we got to name everything. So, but he says basically the entire universe is God, but the entire matter and everything in the universe is consciousness. That's all it is. Like everything we see, the stars, the galaxies, everything that we see. And it's interesting because in quantum mechanics, like this table is not really solid.
Right.
Okay? It's just made up of a stew of all these particles that are basically like, there's really nothing there, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like when you get down to the quantum level, there's really nothing there.
Yeah.
And they believe, like now the new quantum mechanics says that the universe is made out of a field of particles that pop in and out of existence. This is the latest physics, which is like freaky to think about.
Unfortunately, it can't be proved by...
Right. Well, that's
can't-
what they're trying to do,
Yeah.
but basically they're saying that, which kind of almost leads into what Deepak Chopra and some other philosophers believe now, is that the entire universe is nothing but thought. That's it. It's thought. And that everything that you materialize, like they proved that when you're walking around in everyday life, 90% of what you experience is created in your brain.
Oh yeah,
It's
of
not
course.
even out there.
Your whole
So,
worldview,
yeah.
and that's another that relates back to that. If you have a worldview that says, because you experienced this in childhood, that people are violent and evil,
Mm-hmm.
the only people that will come into your consciousness are the people that fit that category.
Right.
You will never. That's why, with James Walker, his belief system is creating his reality, and that's what's happening. So that's a problem.
So he really said the only way I'll go to the Barbie flick is if a woman allows me to pay for it.
No, he's speculating. How am I going to go see this movie? Well, I'll probably see it when a woman wants to see a movie. Of course, she's going to expect to choose the movie and expect me to pay for it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he'll get.
Right.
All right. So okay. So let's go on to another. Do you have another topic, or
Sure.
do you want to comment on what?
Oh yeah. What you're referring to, you break things down smaller and smaller and
Yeah.
smaller. That's called the reductionist approach.
Yeah.
You know what the opposite of that is called?
The
bigger and bigger and bigger.
the productionist.
Inflationary.
The holistic approach.
Oh,
Holistic.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
I see
Okay.
that. I see, for me, and I've told you my concept of God is that we're living in the intestines of God. The things on our eyelashes don't know that they're
See,
living
but you're
on
still
us.
imagining God as a person.
No, I'm not.
Well, I
You
saw
said
an
in the
interesting-
Well,
intestines.
because-
I saw an interesting cartoon about that,
Yeah.
which I didn't save, but I can tell you about
Oh,
it.
okay.
We're in Bethlehem. Mary's got the baby in her arms,
Right.
and she looks down at the baby, and the baby has a big white beard, and she says, I was kind of hoping he wouldn't look like his father. But you see,
That's a
the
good one.
beard, the white beard.
The beard.
Yeah,
The
beard.
guy on the throne, and
Yeah.
God is a male.
Right. The idea of living in the intestines of God is a joke. It's
I-
not.
I get it, I
But
get it.
but it's like we're part of something bigger that we can't imagine. So
Right,
it's just like those
right.
things on our eyelashes are part of us, and they can't imagine us. So
Well, I mean, it's an interesting point. So it's a metaphor,
It's a
right?
metaphor.
The thing
Yeah.
about living on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
islet. How far do you take the metaphor before people think the metaphor is real? You have to sort of remind them,
yeah.
Susan Sontag says that in her book
Okay.
where she got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So she decided to do a book all about people who have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's weird that people say the war on cancer.
I've
And she
always
says,
hated that.
when you start taking that literally, it's like, what am I in this war? Am I the thing being
Yeah.
fought against, or am I the thing that is supposed to fight the war?
Yeah.
That designation,
Like the metaphor can mix you up.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
always bothered me when people say the war against this disease or
Well,
I don't know why, and I couldn't explain why until you were just talking
And
about it.
the thing that one of the things that they talk about in these trauma things is that we all have cancer in our bodies. It's always there. We always have it. To activate it, something has
Right.
something has to activate it. It could be like
Stress.
something from the outside, from the environment, or stress. The stress can activate the cancer, and the stress can be from that traumatic things that happened to you in childhood,
Mhm.
or it doesn't have to be childhood. Oh, there's that ACE test. There's an ACE test. If you look it up, it gives you 10 questions about things you experienced before the age 18 to put you on a spectrum for how much childhood trauma you're dealing with. Okay, so this ACE thing is what they start with when you go to trauma therapy. So I have 8
8 out of 10,
out of 10. And 5 is considered
like significant.
significant.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at it, you can see. And the only thing
I think I've heard of that test.
the
yeah.
only thing I didn't have was sexual abuse before
Right.
before. Well, I shouldn't say that because in the boyfriend situation there was a problem.
Mm.
But childhood stuff. So
Right.
and Gloria Gloria and I did it. Gloria had like 5, and her niece had 8 as well. So we were sitting there like thinking, oh my God, is there any hope? Is there any hope for survival here?
Yeah, I just read a new stat like last week about, like I had always read a few years ago, that they say 1 out of 4 women has either been sexually abused, raped, or, you know, something along those lines. By the time they reach a certain age, 1 out of 4 women. But then I saw an article last week that I think the percentage was maybe
You got an owl
along
in
the
your
same
pocket. Are you
lines.
happy to see me?
I know. I was
mean-
like, I didn't know what was going on.
You can call me a vampire if you want, but I found an app that tells you when the sun is setting.
Oh,
Oh no.
And I thought, I want to be connected.
He's got to go to his box. Oh,
Just the opposite. You arise.
oh right. Sorry.
Ah,
So I was
that's right.
thinking backwards.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a pretty important time for Dracula.
that's right.
You know,
That's
when is the
right.
sun
Are you-
setting?
Are you allowed
Yeah.
to go out now, Richard?
Yeah.
Would this explain when you send me messages at 2 in the morning
Yeah.
and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, because that's your time. You're like,
right.
Yeah.
I find that to be a very productive time for me.
It always was for me too. I like it because it's quiet, and there's not all the cars zooming around.
Only
and,
when I was doing cocaine
um,
did I find that a productive time for
a
me.
productive time.
Many years
Your
ago.
house was spotless.
Many years ago, I was very, very productive at 2 in the morning. That was the
Back in
only
the
time.
80s when everyone else was doing it. Probably
more like 90s. But
90s. 90s.
I am not. I am not a morning person,
I've never been.
and I am not a night person. I am an afternoon person. And I think if
Okay.
a lot of people would think about this, my most productive hours are from like 11 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. Those are my most productive hours.
I think I'm kind of like that, but when I was younger, I liked staying up really late reading.
Oh, and do you
But-
know what happened last night? I don't know. I usually read a book with a light. I have a light in my bedroom that I can access, so I don't have to get up out of bed and turn my light off. Okay, so last night, because I was staying at my daughter's and she didn't have an external light like that, I read my book on my phone. And do you know it took me 2 hours to fall asleep? They say that the light from a
Oh, sure.
device,
Any light.
it will screw up your circadian rhythms. I couldn't sleep. I was laying there. I tried every trick that I do. I went through the alphabet with little games and stuff like that. I walked down 100 stairs
Really?
backwards. In my mind, I
Oh, okay.
did all the tricks, and it took me 2 hours to fall asleep, and I
Well,
will never do that again.
The sleep
That was-
doctors say now you shouldn't even watch TV for an hour before you try to go to bed.
Well,
Or you shouldn't even be on the computer because the blue light from the
Yeah.
computer screen also disturbs your circadian rhythms. And they say you shouldn't even have a lighted alarm clock on your table next to your bed.
I have it behind my head.
And partly because, too, for people with insomnia and trouble sleeping, they say the worst thing is to have that clock next to you and to keep looking at the time. Oh, my God, I should have
Well,
been
yeah.
asleep.
Well-
Oh, my God, it's 3 in the morning.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to tell that to my mom, like, because my mom's got kind of insomnia, sleep troubles. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you stress yourself out.
Yeah.
Like, you stress yourself out about it. Like I've actually was talking to her a couple weeks ago about it. And I'm like, if you cannot fight not being able to sleep, Ma. You got to just, like, try to put it out of your mind. And I know it's, maybe easier said than done,
The
right?
stress keeps you from sleeping. It
Yeah,
does.
because she gets so frustrated about not being able to sleep.
Has she tried melatonin?
And, yeah, she's tried everything.
Yeah.
She's
Well,
gabapentin. The doctors gave her gabapentin
We-
and other stuff.
Have you
and-
been watching that John?
Mm-hmm.
Do you? He's so odd. It's his last.
You should tell Brian what it's about.
I can't remember his last name. John
Is it Wilson?
Wilson. John Wilson. He has a series. It's on HBO. So you can access it on. I don't know where you watch it.
I asked my friends in the movie club.
Oh, okay.
I said, do you have any episodes of this how-to series?
Yeah. So it's called How To, and he does something weird every week. So
Okay.
How to Make Small Talk, I think was his first one, and he has a really interesting, creative way of looking at things, don't you think? The images that he chooses.
When I watch his work, I think of how did he do this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how I think what he does. I think he doesn't know what the episode's going to be about, and he just walks around the city. Oh, look, a balloon. Somebody tied a balloon to a lamppost. He films it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
look, somebody threw some garbage out, and there's a rat popping its head out of the garbage. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then he gets back to his apartment after he has maybe probably 50 hours of video footage. And as he's looking through it, he thinks, "Oh, I could construct a narrative around this."
Yeah.
I
And
see.
he,
Because
then he
it's so
interviews
it's so
someone. Yeah.
interesting that
Yeah.
as he's talking, and then he'll say, and he'll talk about a subject, and he'll say, and it's almost like the rats are coming out, and then you see the rat coming out of the garbage bag, and
Yeah.
you're thinking he couldn't have thought that ahead of time.
No,
you know?
no.
Right.
And the thing is, but the thing is, do you notice how meticulous he is? He keeps notes on everything. Did you see that thing where he has a calendar and he writes everything he's done in this little box? So he must have a way of keeping track of his footage. Like, okay, I have this digital footage, and I've got on this digital footage, I have, 3 minutes of rats, and
So
and,
you think you can go back to something he did
and
before?
Yeah.
he has it. I think has a meticulous mind.
He's good at indexing.
Yeah, indexing, exactly.
Yeah.
So he can go back and he can find those pieces and fit the right piece into his narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Oh, he really.
I don't think I could do that.
I am so sorry that there's. I think we're on the 3rd season now. I think it's the last.
What's his name? Wilson?
John.
John-
Jon Wilson.
John
John
Wilson.
Wilson?
How to? It's called.
J-O-N's the only way to spell John, in my opinion. But anyway, go ahead.
That's what my cousin, who used to be Johnny, is now Jonathan.
Jonathan?
He reinvented himself.
Yeah, and he spells his name Jon.
I don't like J-O-N's, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, anyway, that was an aside. We have only 2 more episodes to watch, so
Hmm.
it's kind of sad. I don't think I
So
will
where
be
does
able
he
to
live?
replace it.
New York City.
He lives
Oh,
in,
New York,
like,
New York.
Brooklyn,
Okay,
I
you
think.
It's
said that.
very New York City centric.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, why are there so many scaffolds outside of buildings in New York City?
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I've
it's-
always wondered about that, actually.
And his whole, and he starts each episode with "Hello New York" or "Hello New York" or something like that, or
So he references the fact
yeah,
that he's
New York, hello New York. But he's in Brooklyn or Queens. I'm not exactly sure. But we actually thought about contacting him because now that he's not, his series has not been renewed. We thought just maybe we could interview him.
That'd be cool.
That would be really cool.
Hmm.
And I have to.
Maybe you
just,
could get him to come to Buffalo, or you could go to New York.
Well,
to see
he
him, yeah.
goes all over the country to film things.
Oh,
so,
he does?
I don't.
Hmm.
I think he would find this place fascinating. Actually,
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Buffalo's pretty unique.
he would be a
Yeah.
good Zoom guest.
he would. I know. I'm thinking about it. We gotta. I mean, there's always somebody that I would like to contact. But anyway, we've only got 6 minutes and 52 seconds left.
Yeah.
What
Oh,
else is
so
on?
anyway, what Susan Sontag
Oh, yeah.
says in Illness is Metaphor.
Yeah.
She says, so the war on cancer. So she follows through on the metaphors. It's a war. Am I a soldier or am I a victim?
Right.
I get the feeling that I'm a victim, and the doctors are the soldiers. Because when I go to the doctor, they talk to each other about how they're going to battle my cancer, and they never even ask for my opinion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but just at my mom at lunch with my mom a couple days ago, she's talking about, and she's got like 7 or 8, 9 doctors, I don't know. So she's talking about something a doctor said. It was like kind of a diagnosis thing, but my mom was like, he wasn't really even listening to what I thought
oh no.
was wrong with me. And I said, well, yeah, I've noticed some doctors can be like that, Mom, and it's probably partly too because you're 85 and he just thinks you're old and you're an old woman and you don't know what you're talking about. And like I think from stuff she tells me about her doctors, I think there's a lot of
Well,
ageism that goes
right.
on.
The thing is, you live in your body for
And,
85 years. You better know your body. I
right.
mean, I know my body. I know what it can do, what it can't do. I know the parts of it that malfunction.
What's normal when you're feeling.
Yeah, and I know, and so I think doctors definitely should listen to people more, but unless you find a really special doctor, you're not gonna get that relationship.
Well, I think my doctor really does. He asks me lots of questions, but he listens. He really listens to what I tell him. The doctor I had before that would just completely blow me off.
You know, the one of the
He
things
just
one of the things that all these psychologists have been saying in these books about trauma is that doctors never ask the question, you know, what have you dealt with? What has your life been like? Have you had a stressful life? Because stress in it just the idea of stress in and of itself, and all the adrenaline it pumps through your body, and how it screws up your.
well, they know it causes disease now.
Well,
Yeah.
diabetes. If your body, if you are producing adrenaline, it shoots sugar out of your whatever organ that is, and it pumps
Pancreas,
it.
I
It
think.
pumps it into your bloodstream because you need that extra. Because if you're going to have to do fight or flight,
Right.
you would need that extra energy, and it can increase. This one girl was in the hospital. A young girl was in the hospital, and she had diabetes, type 1 diabetes from childhood, and they didn't know why. It was uncontrollable, and it turned out her friend had been shot. This was in the recent past, and every time she was in the hospital, every time she heard an ambulance, it reminded her of the police
No
coming
shit.
after her friend was shot, and it would throw her adrenaline into
Her
her
whole
body,
metabolism
and
went
her
crazy.
sugar would just shoot sky high.
Mm-hmm.
And they never asked her any of those questions. How is your life? How are you dealing with things? How is your stress level? You know, I mean, some doctors will ask you that, but that's not. Most time they just try to give you a pill to fix whatever's wrong.
Right.
So.
So here's a cartoon I thought was revealing. You know, it's back to school. You talk about. I'd like to see a follow-up cartoon. What did the kid post?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I was just thinking.
You know, what is it that interests him enough to post it?
I was
Yeah.
also thinking if each kid did that, it would take them forever to get through that because they must be posting all kinds of thousands of stuff during the summer.
Did I tell you? I think I may have mentioned it to you, or I even talked about it on the show, that I did a show and tell at my porch party the last time we did a porch party.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Did a show on porch parties?
No, a show. We did a show and tell, just like they do in.
Oh, yeah, show and tell.
in
Yeah,
kindergarten.
yeah.
That was so. We took that kids thing and we brought it into the adult world, and it was really fun.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Do your granddaughters post
They have Instagram accounts. Oh yeah, my oldest granddaughter. We went roller skating. I didn't roller skate because I wasn't dressed right. I had shorts on. I didn't want to break a knee. So they went roller skating, and I just was sitting there watching them. And there was a boy skating around, and I watched him notice my oldest granddaughter. I could see. I mean, he wasn't like staring and acting weird.
But you could tell there was some chemistry.
I could tell he was noticing her. You know, she's a doll. You know, she's really cute. And so at the end, I knew he was. So I'm thinking in my old technology mind, this boy's going to ask for her phone number.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He asks for her Instagram account.
Right.
Wow.
So I mean, this way he gets to see pictures of her because she posts pictures on Instagram.
Oh, you don't have to be their friend to see the pictures?
I don't think you do. You just have to know the Instagram account name.
So you can't block people on Instagram?
I don't know.
I think you can.
You might be able
if
to.
they start harassing you badly and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
But anyway,
But-
yeah. So he asked for her Instagram, and I said,
That's funny.
I thought he was cute. He was like disheveled, kind of. He had the real curly hair, kind of longish, and I thought he was a cute kid. And she didn't think he was so cute, but she gave him the Instagram account anyway. So I guess it means another like on her Instagram.
It's a different social reality now, you know?
I just found it's like, yeah, here I am thinking he's going to ask for her phone number, like in the olden days, when you had
And-
a phone
and then-
attached to the wall.
Yeah, and then before that, you would probably ask for their address so you could write.
Right. Exactly.
True.
And it's interesting, in those days before the phone, when you would want to pay someone a visit, you would say, "Can I call on you?"
Yes.
And when
Right.
they invented the phone, they said, we have to make people feel comfortable with this. Let's call it, you call someone on the phone."
Yeah. Well, and the other
Okay, I'd never thought about
thing
that.
is, people used to have hours at home. when they would take when they would take visitors.
Yeah.
You know, they'd have certain hours, and people knew them. They were you know.
Like the salon
Yeah.
where you
Well,
like,
no, I mean people would come
come
in.
for tea.
Goodbye. Oh my gosh, that was an alien from outer space.
Yeah,
Okay,
you clipped
this
out
is-
there, Tom.
This is Paula. This is the Common Book Shop.